What does daily life actually look like for someone with no job, no partner, living completely alone on an island? Hi, I'm Kong. I'm 32 years old and I don't make much money. I live on a beautiful island in Vietnam called Phu Quy. I used to live in Hanoi, one of the most expensive cities in Vietnam, but making as little money as I did, I just couldn't survive there anymore. So I decided to move to Phu Quy Island, hoping for a simpler life. To be honest though, even with things being a lot cheaper here, it still isn't easy. I still have to push myself every single day just to make ends meet. This is my morning at the house I'm renting on the island. The place is full of plants and flowers. I really love this space and I usually start my day just by watering them. Compared to the big cities in Vietnam, it's incredibly quiet out here. There's no constant honking or heavy traffic, and since we're right by the ocean, the air is always fresh and cool. I moved out here with just a little bit of savings. Now, I do a few odd jobs around the island to get by, like cooking for some of the local food stalls. I make about $250 a month. I know it's not a lot of money, but honestly, I really need it just to survive. My rent is $100 a month, which means I only have about $150 left for food and everything else. It's not exactly easy, but since living on the island is so much cheaper than in the big cities, I still manage to get by. You can see how cool and peaceful my mornings are here, surrounded by all this green. It's the kind of thing people in the big cities dream about. The island still feels so untouched. And honestly, I really love that about it. It's blooming season right now, so the yard is just bursting with color. Honestly, just taking a moment to look at the flowers brings me a lot of peace. Sometimes it even helps me forget the daily pressure of trying to get by on such a low income. Once I'm done watering the plants, I tidy up a bit and sit down with a cup of tea. It helps me wake up and get ready for the day ahead. Living alone means I have to take care of everything myself. Honestly, I just want things to get a little better so I can find a partner. Just someone so I don't have to do all of this on my own anymore. I know that would make me really happy. Here in Vietnam, drinking tea is a huge part of the culture, and just like coffee, it gives you that little boost to help you wake up. This morning, I'm going to clear out the backyard and plant some cassava. Once it grows, I'll have a bit more food on hand, which will help me save a little extra money for the future. You can see I have all kinds of fruit growing out here in the garden, like bananas, mangoes, and coconuts. They're still pretty green right now, but once they ripen up, they're absolutely delicious. The strong wind blew down a ton of leaves, so I have to sweep those up first. After that, I can start getting the cassava cuttings ready to plant. It's a lot of work and it'll probably take up my entire morning. Back when I lived in Hanoi, I worked as a barber. I could make up to $500 a month, but honestly, that just wasn't enough to survive in one of the most expensive cities in Vietnam. Even though I had a lot more friends there, I knew I had to leave to find a simpler way to live. That's why I decided to move to an island like this one. I might make less money now, but since everything is so much cheaper, I can actually manage to get by. It's just that sometimes I feel really lonely out here. I'm not going to burn all these leaves I'm sweeping up. Instead, I'll compost them to use as fertilizer for the plants. The soil out here on the island really needs a layer of leaves on top just to hold in the moisture, so I make sure to put all of it to good use. The shade under this tree is the perfect spot to just pull up a chair. I'm going to take a quick break here before I get back to work. Resting here in the cool shade, taking a sip of water, it really is a wonderful feeling. I can hear the wind rustling through the branches, and everywhere I look, it's just so green. Sometimes I think that living like this is actually pretty good. But the truth is, when you don't have enough money, life is never going to be easy. I better get back to work now. I don't know what your life is like right now as you watch this video, but I truly believe that if you just keep trying, things will eventually get better. And I'm just starting that journey myself. Now I'm gonna dig up the soil to loosen it. The looser the dirt, the faster the plants will grow. I never did this kind of work back in Hanoi, but I have to get used to it if I want a better life. It's not easy, but if I don't do something extra, the money I'm making just won't be enough to build any kind of future. Now I am going to spread out a layer of dry leaves. That way, when I water it later, the soil will hold the moisture a lot better. Plus, as the leaves break down, they'll add some good nutrients back into the dirt. I actually learned how to do all of this just by watching videos online. I'm really hoping it pays off and gives me a good harvest. For a lot of people, buying groceries is pretty easy, but when you don't make much money like me, you really have to think about every penny you spend. I honestly don't want to look back in 5 or 10 years and still have nothing, just living a life of constant struggle. If I want things to get better, I have to learn how to save. I have to figure out how to bring in a little extra income. Even something simple like this, planting my own vegetables out here in the garden, is definitely going to help me save some money on food. I got some cassava cuttings from my neighbor to plant in the garden. But before they go in the ground, I have to chop them up into shorter pieces. Here in Vietnam, you can actually grow cassava just by planting the stems. Once they're fully grown, you dig up the roots and boil them to eat. For me, it makes a great breakfast. It gives me all the energy I need for a long day of work. It's going to take a few months before I see any results from what I'm planting today, but I'm really looking forward to it. Now that everything's ready, all that's left is to actually get these cuttings into the ground. It takes a while and the sun is really beating down out here, but I'm trying to push through and get it all done before I finally make myself something for lunch. I'm hoping to plant a few other kinds of vegetables soon. That way, my trips to the market will mostly just be for meat and fish. I'll be able to grow all my own greens right here. Just thinking about eating food from my own garden and saving a little money along the way, it honestly makes me really excited. If you ever plan on visiting Vietnam and coming out to Phu Quy Island, just let me know. I'd be more than happy to show you around. It's not a huge island, but I promise you it's one of the most beautiful ones in all of Vietnam. You can go diving to see the coral reefs and the water is just unbelievably clear. And here's everything I managed to get done this morning. Honestly, sometimes I feel a little proud of myself. Now I'm going to go get my lunch ready. I'm going to gather a few vegetables right out of the garden. For lunch today, I'm making Vietnamese sour fish soup. It's honestly one of the most delicious dishes we have here. I need to pick some tamarind leaves to give the broth that perfect sour kick, along with a few lime leaves and a fresh lime to make a dipping sauce for the fish. Just thinking about it is already making my mouth water. Since I cook over a wood fire, I need to go gather some firewood from the garden before I can get started. Now I'm going to get everything washed up and ready to cook. I actually still have a few tomatoes I picked up from the market yesterday, so I'll toss those into the soup as well. Out here on the island, I hardly ever eat out. I mostly just cook my own meals. Honestly, I don't have the extra money for restaurants anyway, so cooking at home really helps me save. Sometimes I'll make a huge pot of meat or fish and just eat that for a few days straight, and on the days I go work at the local restaurants, I just eat there. Every now and then, I still cut hair for a few people. It's what I used to do back in Hanoi after all, and it helps bring in a little extra money. Honestly, I'll take on just about any honest work I can find out here, as long as it helps me get by. Here's how I make my dipping sauce. I like it spicy, so I chop up a bunch of chilies right into the fish sauce, then squeeze in some fresh lime. It really is the perfect sauce to go with the fish. Honestly, after working hard all morning, I'm absolutely starving. Now it's time to get the fish ready. I picked this up at the market early this morning. A fish like this costs about $2. It's a saltwater fish, which makes it absolutely perfect for this sour soup. I'm just going to cut it into smaller pieces so it cooks a little easier. Now all I have to do is get the fire going, throw everything in the pot and let it cook. Since it's just me, making meals is usually pretty quick. I like to keep things simple. Since I'm on my own, I've had to teach myself how to do everything. It really wasn't easy at first, but slowly I'm getting the hang of it, and I'm finally settling into this way of life. Honestly, if things were better and I was making more money, I'd really love to go back to Hanoi. Sure, it's a lot noisier than it is out here, but my friends are there. Maybe I wouldn't feel quite as lonely as I do right now. Now all I have to do is lay back and wait for the soup to finish cooking, and then I can finally eat. Even from this hammock, I can already smell it. Sometimes I really wish I had someone here to share these meals with. It would definitely be a lot nicer. A pot of soup like this only cost me about $3 to make, and I can eat it all day. If I went to a restaurant, something like this would easily cost $10 or $15, maybe even more. I know that might not seem like much to some people, but to me, that's a lot of money. Now all that's left is to set the table and finally enjoy a meal I made myself. It took about 40 minutes to put this lunch together, but honestly, it was completely worth it. I don't think I'm a very good cook, but after living alone for a while, you kind of learn. At first, I burned a lot of food. Sometimes I even forgot to add salt. Now, it's not perfect, but it's good enough. When you live alone, nobody really tells you if the food tastes good. You just sit down, take the first bite, and hope you didn't mess it up. I think that's one of the strange things about living by yourself. You get used to doing everything alone: cooking, eating, cleaning, even talking. Sometimes I catch myself talking to the camera more than I talk to real people. Maybe that's a little funny, or maybe it's a little sad. I'm not sure. Life on Phu Quy Island is very quiet, especially in the evening. I usually hear the wind, the waves, and sometimes a few motorbikes passing by. That's pretty much it. Some people might think this kind of life is lonely, and sometimes it is. But there are also moments when I really enjoy the silence. No traffic, no pressure, just me and the sound of the ocean. Of course, I still worry about money. I don't make much, so I try to keep my meals simple: fish, vegetables, rice, nothing fancy. But honestly, I think this soup tastes better because I made it myself. Maybe when you work for every meal, you appreciate every bite a little more. I don't know what my life will look like a few years from now. Maybe I'll still be here. Maybe I'll move somewhere else. Maybe this YouTube channel will grow, or maybe it won't. But right now, I'm just enjoying this bowl of soup. Sometimes I think life doesn't always need to be exciting. If you're eating while watching this video, I hope your meal is good too. And if you're eating alone, well, I guess tonight we're not really eating alone, are we? Thanks for keeping me company. I'll see you in the next video.